Now I have friends from Martinique and Guadeloupe that understand English, Saint Martin English, and they'll be like, "J'ai compris ce que tu as dit." I was like, "Okay then."
You're on the road.
Work.
Yes.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Linguistic Isle podcast. This episode is all about doing the work, just like the team from Soualigan Slangs. So stay tuned and find out how they are doing their work of preserving St. Martin's language and teaching us tips for learning languages for adults and kids as well. You don't want to miss it. Stay tuned. Advice would you give, or what takeaway you would have from them?
Well, I actually I go into the same process with my son actually, because he's in France. He born in France, but he doesn't matter, no. So, how did he learn English? Well, already he speaks English with my mother. He would watch English movies with me. Well, when he watching the cartoon, he read it in French. But like he would speak English with my mother. He would speak English with my father. And that's what he pick up on. He had the ear for it. He wasn't speaking it, but he had the ear for it. And I would speak to him in English because his father would speak to him in French. So I said, okay, well, the father gonna speak to him in French, and then I would speak to him in English. And then when he go on the tatis, and then they would speak to him in English. And that's how now today he feel more confident speaking English. So now when you're gonna ask him, Jilan, how you doing? He gonna say, I good than you. You know, he was speaking with the accent. The Martin accent. So that's how I went about it. To like always speak around. All my friends that speak English, we just speak English around because we don't speak French. Because it feels weird speaking French to each other. We will speak French to each other if we have
somebody that speaks the.
And if the person come around us more than 2 times, they're gonna have to learn how we just speak. That's how I just tell them, you know, you're gonna have to learn with. Yeah.
Pick up.
Pick it up. And that's how my other French Antillean friends learned how to speak English with me. It's like, I ain't going to translate for you. You learn the same how you just speak Creole and you don't want to translate for me. You gonna have to listen. Okay, if I'm going too fast, I'm going to slow down, but I'm not going to translate for you. And that's how I went about it for me and my son.
So I don't have kids, but I can speak from my childhood. I'm the eldest of 6, and all of my siblings we have different experience with the language. So we spoke English at home. I actually started going to school on the Dutch side because my mom teaches over there, and my father was adamant he wanted us to go to French school. So we switched to the French side, and my mom, I think maybe all of that made her focus more on us speaking proper English, because that's the only thing she could, be involved in. Even in English class, she would be able to help us in that subject. But in the other subject, even if she wanted to assist us in maths or whatever, she couldn't, because she couldn't understand forcément de consigne and all of those things. So growing up, we spoke English at home. Our homework was in French, unfortunately. It was my French school, so we had homework in French. And we were having a lot of difficulties. So my father used to buy us any book you see he had on the market to help your child learn French. We used to do that. During the vacation, we had July on holiday, and August was semi back to school, where you would have to refresh on what you learned the year before. And then he had these dictées. The what is called a dictation. So it's a cassette. You put it on the little radio and you sit on and you have to listen to what they're saying and you write it down. And then after, in the big folder that comes with the cassette, you have the corrections. And you would have to sit down and look at your mistakes. But the issue with that was you didn't have anybody explaining me what was the mistake, why that's a mistake, or why that's not a mistake. So certain things you learn by heart. And then we didn't have cable TV when we were younger. We had a little satellite thing, so we used to watch RFO. Every night you had to watch the news in French, RFO. And then we used to also have, if you wanted to watch cartoons, if it was not vacation time, your cartoons was in French, to try to get us to impregnate. Because if we were not doing that in school, it was with the teacher we were talking French with, classmates. It was, and it's funny because with your classmates, certain words that we did not learn, that if my mother didn't teach it to me in English at home, and I picked it up in school in French, like a gum, I would never say eraser ever, because for me it's a gum. Because the first time I used that item, or the first time it was presented to me, was in school, and it was taught to me as a gum, and I stick in my mind that that is a gum. I know what a pencil is, but for even at the end, so the back of my pencil don't have a gum, and it's like, what you talking? Eraser, Joy? Yeah, and I know what it is. Yeah, the gum. And so today, sometimes there's certain words that you substitute because that's what your mind picked up on. And looking more into the science of how languages work, I realized when I was living in France, I was losing my English.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't speaking it. So when I started, because I was studying, school was French, classmates was French, co-workers was French, side job was French, everything was French. So you're in this French, even picking up things that I wouldn't like, phrases or expressions to express myself would be in French, like, and in my head I was like, look at me. Okay, this is weird. And then when you come around your French, your English speaking friends, it's okay. The first time it's a little weird because you don't get to see each other so often. But when you do, I would say maybe the first 30 minutes, everybody talking franglais.
Yeah.
And it's like something in your brain, there's just like a switch, like, what are you doing? This is too much work. French off, English, and we just start speaking our name. So you know that thing is in you. And how I always remember the fact that I am English, I don't count in French.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I was reading that the language that you count in, that is your mother language. And I have a friend who is a native Spanish speaker. She was raised speaking in Spanish, and she was telling me, yeah, I lose all my Spanish, and I did the experience because I was like, I reading these things for my dissertation, my thesis, and I don't actually believe everything I read in. I tell her, count those, and she did, oh no, I was like, girl, you Spanish. You just don't try no more use Spanish. It's like, what makes you say? It's because you're speaking, you're counting in Spanish. That's the automatic, like if you have to do something without thinking, and it comes out, and that is the language that is more that your brain, if I'm tired, I won't be able to think. It's too much work for me. You're not seeing that your brain, you're feeling that your brain is working, but all of us say it. We translate it in our mind constantly. When I have to speak French, I'm constantly translating in my mind without even knowing it. However, the basic as counting, when they're teaching you to count, that's one of the first things you just do. You have 2 shoes, how many fingers you have. You learn that in a language, and that is the language that is integrated in you.
That is so interesting.
I would just like to piggyback off of that. I think also what helped me a lot in primary school, like Joy said, she only had French-speaking teachers. My teacher was semi-no. And that's why I didn't really have a hard time in school, because she always helped me, and I excelled in school, in primary school. So I think that's what helped me a lot. To piggyback off the part we see you counting in native language, I realized that when you're going to curse.
Yeah.
Yes.
When you're going curse,
The Bible says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth does speak.
every Guadeloupean I know, they came to me yanking the French, and when they get vexed, the first thing they will say, the cry was, and I realized that with my son, like when you will get me upset, I will the English will just come on.
Yeah. Facts.
It's like
Facts. That is complete.
it was like,
hold it back.
I
and then
always say that, like, even
It's who you are, and appreciating that you have that diversity in terms of language and in terms of expressing yourself. My mother's from Dominica, so with my cousins, I tend to speak in that accent weirdly. I don't ask me how, just weirdly, you just flow right into it. And it's like, I didn't even, and even sometimes with my mother, if she's speaking, which one are you mentioned that to me is sounding like a Dominican. My mother would sometimes say an expression and I would answer her back, but in the Dominican accent. And I realized that I do it because for me, I talking to Martin English, and my friends is like, I didn't even know you to speak like a Dominican. Like,
That
I
happened to
don't
me a
speak
lot.
like I'm from Dominica. Yes, you
When
do.
I meet my
Okay.
Kitty family, I just be like, I was always tell my mother speaking like yes or so, yes or so. The Kitishan line. So I don't speak of the Kitishan accent. And then when I rang a Dominican, I just speak just like him. And
Yes.
then I was like, and I don't even do it for spite, you know. It just
Adapt.
come. And then when I say mad, nobody speak more mad than me.
So I wouldn't be so afraid for a child that is learning the language. For me, you're doing
Exactly
what you're supposed to do in terms of integrating them in activities, giving them resources that they could learn or at least hear, because the thing is getting your ear to be accustomed to it and trained, and then maybe you don't know when they grow up they would go to France on an internship or go to study a
They will
year
pick up a
abroad
friend.
or pick up a friend that speaks the French, and they would just need that little extra push for them to just bring out what they already have inside. Because even you I've heard you speak French, and it's not as bad as you may think that you feel. You may feel that it's hard, but it's not, because for me, being able to already put the sentences together is an accomplishment.
French is
that
difficult,
people-
yeah.
and French is-
Complex
so if
Yeah,
you would be
complex
able
language.
to put those sentences and have a basic conversation with somebody in that language, le and la aside,
Yes.
Yeah.
like
How I used to literally take out, for real, I
Like
used to take out
Spanish.
all the learn a lot and just, say the phrase and then skip the learn la and just say the end. And then because it was an embarrassment to me, I would
My
say
shin
la
bags mash
this,
up.
le this.
my shin bags get mashed up with
My
that.
shin bags get mashed up for a couple of choices. I was checking like, and people like, mais c'est là, je dis, excuse-moi, ma langue maternelle c'est anglais, okay? So therefore, I have the right to make mistakes. You, on the other hand, you French, and you make a mistake, you should evaluate yourself. How about that?
Okay, we bring your chance.
Yes,
Yeah, go.
What's your input?
Okay, I don't have any children as yet, but I think a child, most at a young age, we should start putting them in front of both languages or three languages, wherever. Speaking about myself, when I was younger, my father, like I said, was from the Dutch and my mother from the French. My father he can't speak, he catch up now, but before back then, he couldn't speak French. So at home in a household, besides school or my mother talking to us in French, it was mostly English. I won't say for him to don't feel left out, but for us to have like a same language, common language in our household. So that said, as a child, like I said, I had difficulties up till now with the le, the la. Like I said, my shame box, after a while, it just gone. And I accepted the fact that my French, if you want to evolve and get better, you just have to let that go and just learn. That's why I said being in France taught me how to get better on that side. Where I can have a point of interest is my nephew. My nephew, he's 5, and at home in household, his father speaks to him in English and his mother speaks to him in French. The funny thing I realized, because I have a lot of children around me, but they catch on fast. The brain is like a sponge. So that way I said at a young age, they can mostly speak to them as early as possible the languages needed, because in any case is the advantage, like I said, going away, going abroad. Okay? They won't stay here forever, on an island. They'll go abroad, either to Holland, travel, Europe, anywhere. And for me, my point of view is teach them as much language as needed. My only regret now today as an adult is not learning Spanish.
Yeah, yeah.
It's never too late.
It's never too late.
Never too late, but yeah.
It's never too late.
That-
We going hard back.
That's
You
great.
have the base, you got other languages to
Gotta
help
have
you.
it.
So I
But
think we gotta
Spanish-
hold you to that you gotta work on
Yeah.
that Spanish.
So today I see the benefit of learning. If I have a child tomorrow, he will learn French English.
The best.
minimum.
The best.
The
And I would
minimum.
maybe have a
Minimum.
Spanish babysitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have.
Yeah.
Like I have friends that speak Spanish. I say when you see my child, you speak
Spanish.
in Spanish.
Yeah.
You have to learn.
You have to try.
Yeah.
So this concept came about, it was in 2018, I believe. And then we was outside, we went to a restaurant where there was it was a restaurant, I forget the name, La Remerie.
It's called La Remerie.
La Remerie, and they were having, like, they had different rums from different islands, mostly French islands on Guadeloupe and Martinique. And like they was showing the cultural aspect of Guadeloupe and Martinique, and they had nothing else about. So I was like, Jai, I wish I could have put one of these slangs in a shot and wear it so later when people ask me about it, we could talk about it later. And then after that story just just stop right there, and then there was just an idea. And I think in 2019, she moved back, and then she was like, we're gonna do this. So I said, okay, then let me go. And then it was when the pandemic started, like
2020. early
2020, and we checking like, okay, well, we got time now, we won't be stuck. Let we start doing, because we always say we gonna do, and then we put on the back burner, and we
Teen time, yeah.
teen time, yeah, we too busy. So we check, okay, we home, we lock up, we got nothing to do, let we start a project. And that's when we start brainstorming on the name, what we going to do, how we going to bring forth our language, because of it, in St. Martin, there's nothing written. Well, there are not many books written about our culture, our language, nothing of it. And then I fell on the St. Martin talk from Robert Romney, and I was like, this is so cool, I didn't even know it existed. And that was like, he came out with a book in 2012.
Yeah, that's a long time.
So a long time, I think from 2012, and I didn't even know about this book. And I say, we're doing this. We have to do this. And then after, so we piggyback off of the idea, and we saying we gonna try it. We have to try and make it in a fun way, so the young people could, you know, get into the language part of St. Martin, etc. So we decided to put it on shirts or whatever. So we don't know nothing about graphic design. We don't know nothing about internet, social media, and how to e-commerce and stuff like that. So that's when we reach out to Guillame, and then we checking like, where we just don't get together as one. Each of us have a strong point together, you know, like we say one hand can't clap, and then voila, and then we just came together, and then we started Soualigan Slangs, and we're going to fêter our un an bientôt.
Yeah.
So we are so excited for that. So that's how the story behind Soualigan Slangs.
We are still collecting. Let's start off from there. But the way we collected is from family input, people around us. You could have a pop-up store, and they suggest to us, clients also suggest like, why you don't put this on a shirt for, this would be a good, and we just there writing. Today we have a
cool 200.
a cool 200,
and we done it.
a list of slangs already put aside, tucked away for future references. But that's the general way we collect our slangs. Or if it's not through interviews that we do with the old elder folks, like, yeah, we used to say this back in the day, like old fowl, etc.
Yeah, like calmness, big folk.
So that's a way also to have our community input, because, like you said, it's St. Martin. St. Martin is not just Sweet Tree. We represent, Soualigan Slangs represent in a way the St. Martin culture. That is we're trying to, and we want to bring everybody in to that fold and helping us. Okay? So that's a general way we collect our slangs, if everybody should want to know. So now the visual aspect of things. Like he was, I don't know if he said it, but Soualigan Slangs, we are not just slangs on t-shirts. We are also card games, cultural games. We are also events like we did Saturday with a scavenger hunt. Okay? To piggyback on that, because while Jackie was saying the way Soualigan came about, we take a solid 6 months planning, and today we know where we want to be in 5 years. Okay? So everything that we're doing up until now has a meaning. Okay? Even though the general public doesn't see it today, everything has a meaning today or tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay? So coming back to the visual aspect of our cards. So the cards is a representation of your product. So for example, if today you buy a shirt, Funders Bring Bun, automatically you will receive in your package a card with the same slang, with the definition, and also the phonetic meaning of pronunciation of that slang. The reason why, one of the reasons why we did it like that is because we cater to two type of publics. We have the local people, but Jay gonna come back on that afterwards. So the local people, so bringing forward back to the front light our culture, Samaritan culture, okay, the language. And secondly, we are a tourist, we are a tourist island. Okay, so people come from abroad, like we were saying just now, the richness, they like coming to St. Martin, they feel at home with the French, English. We have melting pot, like Joy said just now, we have at least 120 nationalities on the island. And we would like for St. Martinese to be out there, global. So that's one of the reasons why, for example, a tourist will come, what Funders Bring Bun mean? Just so, are you lad? All the slangs, how do you pronounce it? That's why we put automatically on the card the pronunciation, the phonetic pronunciation of that meaning on each and our actual cards and going forward. So today on the card, what we have are the slangs, the definition of the slang, the pronunciation, the phonetical pronunciation of that slang, and also an example of the way you can use that slang in a phrase or expression or just in your day-to-day life. So Soualigan Slangs pass also educational aspect of helping to bring forward and reappropriating our culture.
Yeah, very good.
Thank you. Thank you.
I believe I speak for all three of us when I say that we are trying our best and doing the best that we could to preserve our history and our culture. First of all, by defining it. Because as Jackie said, we don't have that many written items or resources where you can find the culture, the language, the history. Now our generation, there are lots of pages such as On This Day, SXM and Melee, the Melee team that are making an active how do you call that? Effort, yes, an active effort to bring our history and our culture back to the forefront. So as Soualigan Slangs, we're doing our little part to do that as well. Firstly, with the cards that we are bringing that we have with each item that you purchase from us, because as Guillame mentioned, we don't only cater to us. we want other people to understand our culture, our language as well. So with the phonetics, you get to learn a bit of our culture, and you're not just repeating it in your way. You're repeating it the proper way, because there's a way to say ayala. You're not going to say ayu and lud. It's not that. It's ayu and lad, and we wrote it the way it is said. The phonetic pronunciation, it is how it's supposed to be said. And it's a pleasure for me to hear persons from abroad using our slangs. I don't consider it as cultural appropriation. I consider it as cultural appreciation. And we should be proud that other people are out there using our language and promoting it in a positive light. So that is the first thing. The second thing I believe we are doing in order to preserve our history and our culture, we have a series on our Instagram called Border to Border, where we went around from French Quarter border to Bellevue border, making stops in each district on the French side, and bringing about 5 facts about that district that we feel everybody should know. So we started off small, and those 5 facts, we're going to use them. Again, we're going to use that border to border to continue to educate our market, our followers, our community, to help people to know that, sometimes we look at St. Martin and say, oh, St. Martin ain't got nothing. People love to say that St. Martin ain't got nothing. And in my head, I was like, how you can say St. Martin got nothing? You ain't from St. Martin if you feel St. Martin don't have nothing. I was raised, had the privilege, I keep saying it, to be raised with my grandparents, both my grandparents on father's side, both mother, grandmother and grandfather, and my great grandmother is still alive today. So I have a 93-year-old great grandmother, who is still going strong, and I enjoy sitting down and having conversations with her, because she can tell you how it used to be when they first get light, when they first get water, where they used to go look for the water, where the wells were. So you have that culture, and our culture locally is passed on orally. So the work that other islands did that we did not do was to get that written down and get that preserved in a way. We don't even have a museum anymore, so we there is a lot of work to be done in order for our history, our culture to be preserved, and that the younger generation, other people coming here to work, other people coming here to live, they could not feel like, I come into St. Martin, I don't have anything, and I don't have anything to preserve when I come here. No, we do have a culture. We are proud of it, and we, as our slogan says so beautifully, we want everybody, whether you're from here, whether you're not from here, when you come St. Martin, you're going to own this culture. Our way of speaking, our way of being, our way of eating, our way of cooking, our way of walking, our way of celebrating. You can come to St. Martin and you are going to embrace it. And I want for our people, we would like for our people, first of all, to own your culture. It is super important.
Who would have thought that language could be so inspirational? It is such an embedded part of who we are, and just by seeing it visually can remind us how important the way we speak is to who we are. I want to thank again the team from Soualigan Slangs for taking time out of their busy schedule to talk with us. And now let's look at the lexicon for today. We're just going to focus on 3 terms: phonetics, phonemes, and phonics. In the episode, you might have noticed that Guillame was talking about how they phonetically share the spelling of the Soualigan slangs. Well, that is important because phonetics shows the relationship between your pronunciation, the way something is spoken, and the way people understand the language. So that is why Joy mentioned, she's got to make sure that people are going to say, they're going to use the term are you Lord the correct way, not are you Lord, are you, that make sure that the pronunciation is correct. And people will be able to do that if they understand the phonetics. So on the screen, you're also going to see an example of the International phonetic alphabet. This exists, and if you understand the phonetic alphabet, then this makes sure that everybody can pronounce things in the way that you see fit. I always thought this was very interesting when I was learning phonetics, because as a teacher we're taught and we teach that there are two A sounds, for example, a long A and a short A. But there are many sounds in between. Just think about the words cat, the A sound in cat and the A sound in along, and you realize that they're not the same. And it's not because one is a longer A, they're actually two distinctly different A sounds, and you will see that in the phonetic alphabet. It makes those slight variations of sounds. Phonemes. Now, a phoneme is the smallest unit of sound. So again, if we take the example of the word cat, there are three phonemes in that. K, at. The k is a sound, the a is a sound, the t is a sound. Okay? So those are phonemes, the smallest units of sound in your language. And phonics is actually something different. A lot of you might remember, if you grew up in my time, there was something called Hooked on Phonics. So phonics is to help you learn to read, and this is focusing on the relationship of the letters, the alphabet letters, that the way we know it, those sounds and the letters to help you to read. So while phonics focuses on the alphabet, the traditional everyday alphabet, and helping you connect the letters and sounds in that way to read, phonemes and phonetics isn't necessarily focused on the reading sound. It's about pronunciation, because you know, if you read in English, just the way something is written isn't always the way it's pronounced. So whereas phonetics and phonemes focuses on pronunciation, phonics focuses on the sounds that you need to be able to read. All right.